Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 18th of February and we will be dealing with three very important topics which are in news. Out of these three, one is a thematic discussion which we started last week, that is economic survey chapter by chapter discussion. We've completed chapter 1, today we will be starting with chapter 2. And chapter 2 is all about monetary and financial sector developments in India. This chapter is a bit lengthy, so we will be covering it in three parts probably. And today is going to be the first part out of these three parts for discussion. We'll be talking about monetary policy developments in the country, the financial sector in the country, rural financial sector in the country, all these things. Then apart from this thematic discussion, we will be picking up two topics which are in news these days. The first is nuclear energy laws of India. The government in this year's budget announced that it is intending to amend the two nuclear energy laws in India. Law number 1, Atomic Energy Act of 1962, which mandates that only the government is allowed to operate a nuclear power plant in the country. Amendments are, will be giving private players also the opportunity to operate nuclear power plants. Second is the Civil Liabilities for Nuclear Damages Act 2010, which makes the operator as well as the supplier liable for any damages caused due to accidents. Now here, this liability is going to be a bit watered down. Because of these stringent measures, the foreign companies of France and USA were apprehensive of doing investments in the country. And once done, the doors will be open for those companies to come and invest in our country. The next topic is Corruption Perception Index. This index is released by the non-profit organization Transparency International. It is based in Germany, Berlin, and this report is released every year since 1995. India's ranking is 96 this year, better than almost every country except Bhutan in South Asia. And one thing which I could analyze from the finding of this particular index was that corruption in the developed countries is the least. Then in developing countries, then it is the highest in the underdeveloped countries. South Sudan is the country in which the corruption is the highest as per this index. So let's see what is there in detail in these three topics. The nuclear energy laws of India. So there are two nuclear energy laws of India we are talking about over here, and we will be discussing both these laws in detail. First is Civil Liabilities for Nuclear Damage Act 2010 and second is Atomic Energy Act 1962. In a nutshell, if I have to tell you, civil liabilities for Nuclear Damage Act. Understand from the name that any damages if happen due to any accident in the nuclear power plant, then who will be liable for it? Who will be compensating the people? All those measures are written in this particular law. It is the operator of that nuclear power plant which is responsible for, which is liable for compensating the people. And it is the supplier of equipments if it is proven that particular accident happened due to any failure of that equipment which was supplied by the supplier. Then the supplier is also, liable for compensating for the damages. But the ultimate liability is with the operator. The second law, that is Atomic Energy Act of 1962, mandates that only the government of India is entitled to operate nuclear power plants in the country, means there is no entry of the private players in this particular domain. So the Nuclear Power Corporation of India, a public sector undertaking, is operating all the nuclear power plants in the country as of now. There are 8 nuclear power plants in the country and having 22 reactors in total. Now amendments have to be done in these two laws. Amendment in Atomic Energy Act will entitle the private players also to come and operate the nuclear power plants in the country. The amendments in the Civil Liabilities for Nuclear Damages Act 2010 will reduce some of the liabilities on the operators as well as suppliers, largely suppliers. This will ease this sector and enable or attract the foreign investors to come and invest in this particular sector. nuclear energy, no doubt, is the cleanest source of energy. It is even cleaner than solar or wind power. Actually, the carbon footprint of nuclear power is less as compared to renewable energy sources like solar or wind, because for generating solar power we need the solar photovoltaic cells or panels. For creating sort of photovoltaic cells we need to do mining, a lot of mining and all. Then there are batteries in which that current is stored. For creating batteries or for making batteries we need nickel, cobalt, these kind of raw materials for which a lot of mining has to be done. So overall carbon footprint, if we see, of the solar sector or the wind sector, it is more than the carbon footprint of the nuclear power plants. Nuclear power plants, as of now, they are traditional nuclear power plants. No doubt, there is a lot of cement, steel required to make a reactor, nuclear power reactor. Cement, steel, that is in itself, these are carbon intensive sectors. A lot of carbon is emitted while creating cement, while making steel and all. But yes, once it is a one time investment, once done, it runs for years. And nuclear fuel is this much, it can generate a lot of heat. That heat converts water into steam. That steam goes on the turbine, runs the turbine, and generates electricity. The byproduct is water only, no carbon emissions as such. That is why it is considered, clean source of a cleanest source of energy. Now, in this also a lot of innovations are being planned, like small modular reactors, SMRs. These large modular reactors are very large. They are constructed on site. They cannot be transported. They are so large. And since they are so large, so cement and steel, these kind of components used are in high amount, very high amount. But small modular reactors, they are comparatively small. They generate only up to 300 megawatt of electricity, can be constructed or can be made in factory setup, are portable, can be transported to the site, and their carbon footprint will be lesser than the large traditional nuclear power plants. The SMRs, obviously electricity generation capacity is also less, but yes, the threat of radiation leakage is also very less as compared to the traditional large reactors. This as of now is in concept stage, advanced stages of concept stage, almost finalized. And India is talking about installing small modular reactors in the country. And by 2033, we need to generate a lot of electricity from here, small modular reactors. Small modular reactors were also under talks when the Indian Prime Minister recently traveled to France and USA. Actually, governments of both these countries only are wanting to invest in the nuclear power setup of the country. But due to these stringent laws and provisions in these laws, they are backing out. So we need to facilitate the, that is why these changes are being made. So the first law, Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act 2010, it was introduced to provide legal framework for compensating victims of nuclear accidents. Now, we have experienced one nuclear accident, Bhopal gas tragedy, 1984. An American company was running that entity in Bhopal, and that company fled India without compensating the victims. From that episode, we learned that there needs to be a law, and that law came in 2010. That and this particular law is specifically with respect to nuclear power plants, as the name suggests, Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act. So, who all are liable for any damages if it happens due to accidents? Operator liability. Operator is ultimately liable, even if the fault is of the operator or not, doesn't matter. Operator liability is there, and operator in India is only the government of India, NPCIL, Nuclear Power Corporation of India. Then the second liability is the supplier liability. Supplier liability means any entity which has supplied any components, nuclear reactors, if any country has made or any company has made, or nuclear fuel, and if it is proven that, or any components or any equipments over there, a lot of equipments are used in that nuclear power plant. So if any equipment undergoes a failure, and due to that failure that accident happens and it impacts the people, then only the supplier will be liable for compensating. If the accident is caused by defective equipment, operators can claim compensation from suppliers. Ultimately, operators will have to compensate the people. But if that accident is due to failure of any equipment supplied by the suppliers, then the suppliers also become liable for compensation. Financial security operators must have enough funds set aside to cover damages, with the government stepping in if the cost exceeds a certain amount. So NPCIL keeps a certain amount aside always. But if the damages caused by any nuclear accident is more than that fund, then the government will step in. So this law passed in 2010. 2 years down the line, an amendment was done in 2012. The Indian government added the supplier liability clause in 2012 actually. That supplier liability clause, if any accident is caused due to failure of an equipment supplied by someone, and it is proven that this accident was due to the failure of this particular equipment, then that supplier becomes liable. So this clause held suppliers responsible for damages caused by defective equipments or materials. The aim was to ensure that foreign companies couldn't escape full liability in case of accidents in India, because a lot of these equipments were imported. However, this provision caused difficulties for foreign nuclear companies like Westinghouse. Westinghouse is an American company, EDF is a French company, who feared they would be financially responsible for accidents related to their supplied equipments, which slowed down major projects. So see, any of these equipments can go and can undergo failure, and there can be multiple reasons for failure. When these equipments were made, they were 100% quality checked. They were okay. They were passed by the makers. They were passed by the, operators also over here. But you don't know when, they start functioning, multiple factors come into play and they can undergo, breakdown. And if that breakdown is such that that leads to a nuclear accident, then they will be liable. So due to this fact, these companies, they were backing off ki bhai, Indian laws are quite stringent. Let's not get into it. But now the government is talking about amending them. Now the Atomic Energy Act 1962. According to this particular act, the central government has exclusive rights to produce and use nuclear energy. No other, I would say, entity. So private and foreign companies have been restricted from owning or running nuclear power plants in India. So this is operating. This is operating. So there is only one operator of nuclear power plants in India, and that is Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, NPCIL. The private companies, foreign companies can provide supplies, equipments to NPCIL, but NPCIL will only operate as per the Atomic Energy Act. Now government is wanting to amend this also and wants to bring in foreign operators for generating nuclear power plant in the country. Now, challenges faced by US and French firms. So, US firm is Westinghouse Electric Company and the French firm is Electricité de France, EDF. Now, they were worried about the financial risks tied to the supplier liability clause in the CLNDA Act. Because of this, important nuclear projects have been delayed for more than 15 years. So, Westinghouse signed an agreement in 2012 to build 6 AP1000 reactors at Kovada, Andhra Pradesh. But they are pending. EDF, Electricité de France, signed an agreement in 2009 to build 6 EPR1650 reactors at Jaitapur, Maharashtra. And let me tell you, friends, that if or once this Jaitapur nuclear power plant is commissioned, it is going to be the world's largest nuclear power plant. World's largest. But it is not proceeding because of the stringent atomic energy laws in the country or nuclear power laws in the country. India's current nuclear power capacity is 6780 megawatt with 22 reactors in 8 nuclear power plants. And is there any foreign country which has supplied, to Indian, I would say NPCIL? Yes, there is one, Rosatom. Rosatom is the Russian nuclear company which has provided, I would say, equipments for the Kudankulam nuclear power plant. And Russian company Rosatom is very much okay with the current uh, atomic energy laws in the country. It is okay to bear the supplier's liability. But these two are becoming apprehensive. Now, key budget announcements. In this budget, announcements about changes to the CLNDA and Atomic Energy Act were done. 20,000 crore has been allocated to develop 5 small modular reactors by 2033. The small modular reactors will be created in India, obviously with foreign help. Nuclear energy target: India aims to reach 100 gigawatt of nuclear power capacity by 2047 as part of its long-term energy goals. So as of now, I would say that the total power being generated in India, only 3 to 4% is being generated by nuclear power, the cleanest source of energy. But by 2047, if we are able to generate 100 gigawatts of nuclear power, then this would be somewhere around 10 to 12%. And yes, this is needed. This is needed in the times of climate change or global warming. This is needed in the times of rising energy demand by India. This is needed when India wants to become a developed country by 2047. So, we need to focus on this. Proposed amendments: supplier liability revision will be there in the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act. Up to what level or what I would say changes will be there, we will only get to know once this law is tabled in the parliament. And of course, when it will be tabled, I will be discussing it in the videos. So there will be a recourse mechanism, provision that allows operators to seek compensation from suppliers for defective equipments. It may be changed or removed, making it easier for foreign companies to operate in India. In the Atomic Energy Act 1962, according to which only the government of India is entitled to operate nuclear power plants in the country, private sector participation will be enabled. Changes will allow private and foreign companies to own and operate nuclear power plants, ending the government's control over the sector. And public-private partnership will also be encouraged with NPCIL, which is the sole operator of nuclear power plants as of now. But exactly what will be the provisions, we will get to know once these bills are tabled in the parliament and once they are passed. So then to 100% exactly we'll get to know with what provisions these bills have been passed. Now, impact on American and French firms. The proposed changes are expected to have a big impact on American and French firms, encouraging investment by easing liability rules. The reforms are likely to attract American companies and French companies to invest in India. Their proposals are pending since 2009 and 2012. 2009 France for Jetapur and 2012 uh, America for Kovada in Andhra Pradesh. Faster project execution can happen. Reduction in legal risks could speed up the construction of projects that have been delayed, such as those in Kovada and Jetapur. Partnership with foreign firms will bring advanced nuclear technologies, including small modular reactors, to India. And this is going to be a major breakthrough in nuclear power generation, the small modular reactors. Now, previous governments' stance. What have been the stand of the previous governments with respect to these two laws? So, in February 2015, the NDA government was in power. Indian government released a frequently asked questions document after the US President Barack Obama's visit. The document stated that there were no plans to amend the CLNDA. However, this stance didn't lead to significant agreements and the legal issues remained unresolved. Now the government has reversed its position to encourage greater foreign investment. So let's see in what form these laws get passed. And you know, is it important for these laws to be passed? Yes, it is kind of important now for these laws to be passed because we need to enhance our energy production. We need to diversify also our energy basket. And what better than nuclear power can be an addition in the nuclear energy or in the total energy basket of the country because it is the cleanest source of energy. So things need to go in this direction. Next is Corruption Perception Index. Now, this index is released annually by Transparency International. It is an organization which is based in Berlin, Germany, and this is being released annually since 1995. Now, this is a critical benchmark for assessing the perceived level of public sector corruption across different countries. It is a sample survey and it is based on certain perceptions. So, the accurate picture is not there, but at least some picture is there. We need to look at this particular index from this viewpoint. So you see, this is the map which they are showing, and obviously the light yellow ones are the countries where corruption is the least. Then the dark yellow ones, corruption is more than the light yellow ones. And then you have the orange ones, then you have the red ones, and then you have the dark red ones. There are multiple categories. As the color goes dark, corruption increases. This is as simple as that. And by analyzing this global map over here, I could simply assess that corruption is less in the developed countries. And as the levels of development reduces, the corruption levels increase. This is a correlation between corruption and levels of development, which can be found out over here from this particular findings. So here's a list of countries, no need to memorize obviously, but yes, there are certain indicators which you need to know, and we'll go to those indicators. So it was released in February 2025. Countries, 180 countries and territories are ranked in this scoring system. It ranges from 0, means highly corrupt, to 100, very clean. Global average score 43 points, less than 50 it is. Democratic regimes, full democracies, average score of 73 is there. Flawed democracies means those countries which claim that they are democracies, but behind the scenes the democracy is compromised. Average score of 47. Obviously, corruption in such kind of flawed democracies is expected to be more as compared to corruption in full democracies. Non-democratic regimes average score of 33, and it is quite expected that the non-democratic regimes transparency is less, accountability is less, so corruption will be high. But in full democracies, since transparency and uh, I would say accountability is more, then you know corruption is less as compared to flawed democracies and non-democratic regimes. Key findings: global corruption levels. Over two-thirds of the countries scored below 50, indicating significant corruption issues worldwide. Over two-thirds. That is a problem. Improvements and stagnations: 32 countries have significantly reduced corruption levels since 2012, while 148 countries have shown stagnation or worsening corruption. That is concerning. It should be the other way around. Perfect score: no country achieved a perfect score of 100, indicating that complete transparency remains elusive. So, I would say if someone is corrupt by some sense in the most advanced or least corrupt country also. Regional insights, if I talk about Western Europe and European Union, that is the developed part of the world, leading with an average score of 66, but showing a decline for the second consecutive year due to business interests outweighing public good and weak enforcement of laws. So this is happening. There's a lot of pressure from the business lobby to get going their businesses and all, and for that purpose, a lot of, I would say, corruption and all is happening over there as well. The sub-Saharan Africa, lowest average score at 33, but with signs of improvement in specific countries despite challenges like climate change and conflict. Middle East and North Africa, it is called as the MENA region, slight increase in corruption levels with an average score of 39. Key issues include conflict, authoritarianism, and weak justice system. Eastern Europe and Central Asia, now this is one area which is impacted by conflict, Russia-Ukraine war. Second lowest average score globally, exacerbated by conflict, weak institutions, and authoritarian tendencies. The Americas, means North America and South America, need for urgent action to address impunity, protect civil spaces, and curb the influence of organized crime in politics. That is happening over there. Countries like, you know, Mexico and countries in the South America are there where drug cartels are quite prominent. Asia Pacific, mixed progress with improvements in some countries, but a declining average score due to worsening corruption cycles and climate change impacts. So, this is, the region wise analysis. The top 5 countries: Denmark with 90 points, and it is the cleanest country for 7th year in a row. Finland 88 points, Singapore 84 points, New Zealand 83 points. It is out of the top 3 for the first time since 2012. Luxembourg, Norway, Switzerland, 81 points each. All these are, developed countries of the world. Lowest ranked country, South Sudan, sorry, 8 points. Somalia, 9 points. Venezuela, 10 points. Syria, 12 points. Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Libya, Yemen, 13 points each. And if you see one thing common in these, I would say, countries is political instability. It is of ultimate high level, and hence corruption is of high level. What is India's score? India's score is 38 out of 100. Rank is 96 out of 180. Score changes -1 since 2023. So in 2023, the score was 39. Now it is 38. Means corruption increased in India as per this corruption perception index. Neighboring countries, Bhutan, rank 18, score 72. Sri Lanka, rank 121, score 32, less than India the score is. Maldives, the score is 38, same as of India, and rank is also same as of India, 96. Pakistan, score 27, rank 135, score lower than India. Bangladesh, score lower than India, that is 23. Afghanistan, 17, lower than India. China, the score is better than India, it is 43, and the rank is also better than India. Nepal, the score is 34, it is lower than India again, and obviously the rank is also higher than India. Score 16 of Myanmar, and rank is 168. Now again, you could see that in South Asia, India has performed better than all the countries except Bhutan. And with Maldives, we share the score and the rank. Now the third topic, that is the thematic discussion, economic survey, chapter 2, monetary and financial sector developments in India. This part 1 which we are discussing, probably we will be having 3 parts to discuss in this. The financial institutions and economic growth, if I talk about, financial institutions are important in shaping a country's economic growth. Financial institutions like banks, financial institutions like, uh, non-banking financial sector or microfinance institutions, which provide finance for doing, certain businesses and all. So they become very important, or they become a very important pole in any country's economic progress. But yes, they need to have a regulator on top of them, and that regulator over the banks is the RBI, over the rural banks, regional rural banks and all is NABARD. So those banks need to contain or control the money flow in the society, or any money flow in the economy of any country, and money flow will decide the levels of inflation. So monetary policies are the policies which are rolled by the central banks. The regulator, means RBI, significantly influence the interplay between financial intermediation and economic growth. So see, no doubt about the fact that if money flow is more in the economy, or money supply is more in the economy, there will be more economic growth. But there will be more inflation also. And if inflation surpasses a beyond certain point, then that needs to be controlled. And that is what, the central banks through monetary policies do. They have to strike a balance. They have to reduce the money supply if inflation is beyond a certain limit. The limit set in India is 2 to 6%. So let's suppose that inflation surpasses 6%, then we can say that economic activity is good in the country because money supply is more. People are having more money in their hands, more money is circulating in the economy, and more money circulating means more economic activity happening. But that is also causing inflation. So the central banks, through monetary policies, suck in that extra money which is getting circulated. And with the sucking up of that extra money which is in circulation, economic activity reduces. This is also not good for the country or for any economy. So here, the banks are always in kind of a dilemma that, we should control inflation, but we should control inflation up to that level only, which does not hamper economic growth. We should let minimum level of, or we should let, I would say, desirable level of money supply left in the economy. The global factors, the developments in the financial sector are shaped by both domestic and global factors, including inflation trends, economic activity projections, and interest rate movements in major economies like US, EU, and Japan. So, see, our monetary policies are related with the monetary policies of other countries. So, let's suppose in USA, if inflation is high, so their central bank, which is called as the federal bank, will increase the repo rate or will increase the policy rates. Their policy rates going high means the financial instruments in US becoming attractive, because the financial instruments are indexed with or linked with the policy rates. So The policy rates high by the Central Bank of America due to inflation over there will make the financial instruments in America more attractive. People will be investing more money in those financial instruments. Then only, money supply will reduce in their economy. But it is not only the people of their, economy or their country which will be investing in the financial instruments. People who are global investors who had invested in India or in the Indian market, they will pick their money up from India and they will also invest in America, leaving the Indian rupee more vulnerable, weak, thereby causing further inflation in the country because India is importing 85% of the oil. And when rupee becomes weak, imports become expensive. And one commodity among the imports is oil. So oil becoming expensive means everything becoming expensive in the country. How does RBI, control, or what are the tools or instruments with RBI? Interest rate. RBI adjusts interest rates to control inflation and economic growth. This is what we call as the repo rate or policy rate. This is the rate at which RBI issues loans to the banks. So what RBI does? RBI, scheduled commercial banks, SCB stand for. If the scheduled commercial banks want money from RBI, RBI gives them money, but RBI charges this interest rate, which we call as repo rate. So these scheduled commercial banks, despite taking loan from RBI, they go to the people. They seek loan from or they seek money from the people. People are having excess money. That is why inflation is there. But these people will only give money to the scheduled commercial banks if the scheduled commercial banks make the financial instruments attractive. So, scheduled commercial banks make financial instruments attractive, people park their money, and as a result, inflation reduces. But people not only in India will park money, global investors will also come and park money if they feel that the Indian market is rewarding. If they feel that some other market is more rewarding, like the American market, they will pick their money from India and go to America. That is how monetary policies are connected nowadays in a globalized world. So, this is what I wanted to make you understand. Open market operations, RBI buys or sells government securities to regulate money supply. If the RBI feels that money supply is more, so what it will do, it will issue government securities and it will suck in the extra money which is in circulation. Cash reserve ratio, the minimum percentage of a bank's total deposits that it must keep with RBI used to manage liquidity. So minimum some amount has to be kept by the RBI, by the banks. So what if RBI feels that if the inflation is high, money circulation in the economy is high, it will increase the CRR. It will say that you had to keep 4%, now you have to keep 4.5% with us. The banks will have to follow that. Banks will be liable of keeping the increased amount of CRR, thereby reducing the money supply in the economy. Statutory liquidity ratio, SLR, the minimum percentage of a bank's deposit that must be kept in the form of liquid assets like cash, gold, or government securities. So, RBI can do some changes in this as well, SLR as well. Now, monetary policy decisions in the last 1 year, FY25, that is April 2024 till December 2024, this is MPC decided to keep policy repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. But it was this time, that is this month, February, that the the policy repo rate were reduced. But last year entire, they were the same. CRR cut in December 2024. CRR was reduced from 4.5 to 4% of net demand and time liabilities, releasing about 1.16 lakh crore into the banking system, which simply means that inflation was well under control. RBI thus reduced the CRR to release more money in the economy. Because of the release of this extra money in the economy, RBI knew that inflation will increase, but that increase will also be in permissible limits because the already existing inflation was very much under control. Role of rural financial institutions. Now, most of India's population lives in the rural areas. No doubt, the GDP generated by the rural areas is less than the GDP generated by urban areas in the country. But yes, they also need financial institutions like banks and all. So, the rural financial institutions, RFIs, institutions providing financial services in rural areas, play a crucial role in ensuring inclusive growth by promoting financial inclusion. Financial inclusion is a term where the people are having access to the financial services like banking, uh, access to credit, pensions, and insurance. And these financial services are provided by rural financial institutions. Which kind of rural financial institutions are there? The major is regional rural banks, established to provide financial services in rural areas. Then rural cooperative banks, banks owned by members for promoting rural economic activities. Then scheduled commercial banks like HDFC, SBI and all, they also have, some of them have branches in a few rural areas. Banks listed under the second schedule of the Reserve Bank of India Act also have branches over there. Then small finance banks providing financial services to underserved sections of the society. NBFCs, non-banking financial companies providing financial services without accepting deposits. Microfinance institutions, companies which are providing, or entities which are providing small amount of loans, providing small loans to the underserved. And local area banks focusing on specific geographical areas. Now NABARD oversight, they are all largely under NABARD oversight. Specifically, if I talk about the regional rural banks and the regional cooperative banks, these two entities are under NABARD. They are regulated by NABARD. Apart from it, small finance bank, NBFCs, so it depends on which kind of NBFC it is. If it is providing insurance services, then it is under IRDA. If it is providing financial services, banking services, then it is under RBI. So depending on which type of or which category of NBFC it is. But yes, largely they are under RBI, like small finance bank, microfinance institutions and all. So yes, there are some or the other regulators over these rural financial institutions. And the largest among them is the RRBs, the regional rural banks. So in detail, we will be discussing about RRBs. So RRBs were established in 1975 under this law, Regional Rural Banks Act of 1976. Act aimed at improving rural credit and financial services. So they are statutory bodies, we can say. RRBs have significantly expanded since their inception. There were 133 RRBs in 2006, but now if I see in 2023, the number of RRBs have reduced, 43 in 2023. That does not mean that the outreach of RRBs have also reduced. The outreach in fact has increased. There were consolidations, mergers, so that efficiently these RRBs can function. RRBs now cover 696 districts as of 2023, up from 523 in 2006. So number of districts have increased. A number of branches, physical locations of RRBs grew from 14,494 in 2006 to 21,856 in 2023. Current status as of March 31, 2024, there were 43 RRBs sponsored by 12 scheduled commercial banks. The scheduled commercial banks sponsor them, central government sponsors them, the state governments also sponsor them. With 22,069 branches operating in 26 states and 3 union territories, with 31.3 crore deposit accounts, bank accounts holding customer deposits, and 3 crore loan accounts representing loans disbursed. So yes, they are, kind of a backbone of the rural financial systems, the RRBs, and they need to be strengthened more and more. Now, in the next parts, we will see that how the banking sector and all can be improved. What were the major developments, other major developments in the financial sector of the country. But as of now, for today, that was it. Now we will be entering into the MCQs based on these three topics. Consider the following statements with respect to civil liability for Nuclear Damage Act 2010 and mark the correct one. CLNDA 2010 entails operator liability only and not the supplier's liability. As per the law, the operator has to set aside funds to cover damages, with the government stepping in if the cost exceeds a certain amount. So, only one, only two, both one and two, neither one nor two. Consider the following pairs and mark how many of them how many of them are correctly matched. Okay. Kudankulam nuclear power plant, country which supplied the, I would say, equipments was Russia for it. Kovada, USA. Jaitapur, France. Only one pair is correctly matched. Only two pairs are correctly matched. All the pairs are correctly matched, or none of the pairs are correctly matched. You have to find the correct answer combination over here. Third, consider the following statements with respect to corruption perception index and mark the correct one. It is an annual index released by Transparency International. According to 2024 index, India performs better than all countries in South Asia. Only one, only two, both one and two, neither one nor two. Fourth, where is Transparency International headquartered? Bonn, Germany, Berlin, Germany, Lyon, France, or New York, USA. And the last question, consider the following statements with respect to regional rural banks and mark the correct one. RRBs are regulated by RBI. RRBs are a statutory body. The number of RRBs have reduced in India since 2006. Only 1 and 2, only 2 and 3, only 2, or all of the above. Now, yesterday's MCQs. India is exporting the BrahMos missile to which of the following countries? So, as of now, India has only exported it to Philippines. We are in talks with the rest of these three countries. We have not exporting or we are not exporting currently to these countries. It is only Philippines and hence it is only 3. The C is the correct option over here. Second, consider the following statements with respect to BrahMos next generation missile and mark the correct one. The BrahMos NG missile will be shorter than the current version of the missile. Yes, it will be shorter. Its length will be 6 meters. The earlier one was 9 meters. The radar signature of BrahMos next generation will be low as compared to the current version. Yes, because the weight will be less, the length will be less. So, the radar signature will be less. This statement is also correct. So, C again is the correct option of this. Both 1 and 2 are correct. Third, which of the following things happen after the imposition of president's rule? The legislative assembly of the state gets dissolved, suspended. All the powers of the state government are transferred to the central government. Article 356 is all about this only. So, first statement is wrong, second statement is right. Hence, only 2 is the correct option. Next question, which organization releases the climate risk index report? It is German Watch. Very straightforward question it was. So, nothing to explain in this. Now, according to climate risk index, which country has experienced the maximum loss as percentage of its GDP in the last 30 years? It is Dominica. So, if you see that image, so Dominica in that image, it is clearly mentioned that Dominica has experienced the maximum amount of loss as percentage of its GDP due to extreme weather events in the last 30 years. So, with this, we've come to an end of today's session. We will be seeing you tomorrow now, and we'll be discussing the new topics which are in news, and we'll continue with the second chapter of economic survey. Till then, you guys very well know what to do, not repeating it today. See you on the other end. Namaste. Jai Hind.